Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Brett opened her eyes to find herself holding a beautifully bound book. She looked at Annabella questioningly. "Open it," Annabella encouraged. As Brett flipped through the pages, she gasped. The book was filled with photos of her and Annabella, of their friends and coworkers, of the places they'd been together. Interspersed with the photos were handwritten notes and messages from their loved ones, congratulating them on their engagement. "How did you—" Brett trailed off, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Annabella wrapped her arms around Brett from behind, resting her chin on her shoulder. "I've been planning this for a while. Maria helped me get in touch with everyone to contribute. I wanted you to see how many people love and support us." Brett turned in Annabella's arms, tears streaming down her face. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me," she whispered. "I love you so much." As they stood there on the balcony, holding each other under the starry Hawaiian sky, Brett felt a sense of peace and belonging she'd never experienced before. She thought back to the scared, insecure person she'd been just a year ago, hiding her true self from the world. Now, here she was, engaged to the love of her life, surrounded by love and acceptance. The rest of their vacation passed in a blissful haze of beach days, romantic dinners, and long conversations about their future. They began to tentatively plan their wedding, debating venues and color schemes as they lounged by the pool. On their last night in Hawaii, they decided to have a quiet dinner in their room, ordering room service and opening a bottle of champagne. As they sat on the balcony, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Brett felt a surge of emotion. "Annabella," she said softly, "I want you to know how much this trip has meant to me. Not just the proposal, but everything. For the first time in my life, I feel completely and utterly myself. And I'm not afraid anymore." Annabella reached out and took Brett's hand. "That's all I've ever wanted for you, my love. To see you happy and free to be who you are." As the stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Brett and Annabella toasted to their future, a future filled with love, acceptance, and the promise of a lifetime together. The flight home was bittersweet, both women reluctant to leave the paradise they'd found in Hawaii, but excited to start their new life together. As they settled into their seats, Annabella reached over and laced her fingers through Brett's. "Ready to face the real world again?" she asked with a small smile. Brett nodded, squeezing Annabella's hand. "As long as I'm with you, I'm ready for anything." Their return to work was met with an outpouring of congratulations and well wishes. Maria, in particular, was overjoyed, pulling Brett into a tight hug the moment she stepped into the office. "Let me see the ring," she demanded, grabbing Brett's hand. "Oh, it's gorgeous. I'm so happy for you both." As Brett settled back into her routine, she found that her newfound confidence had a positive impact on her work. She tackled projects with renewed enthusiasm, and her ideas in meetings were met with increased respect and consideration. One afternoon, about a month after their return, Brett was called into a meeting with the company's CEO. Her heart raced as she entered the imposing office, wondering what this could be about. The CEO, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, gestured for Brett to take a seat. "Brett, I've been hearing excellent things about your work lately," she began. "Your performance has always been exemplary, but in recent months, you've really gone above and beyond." "Thank you," Brett replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been feeling very motivated and inspired lately." The CEO nodded approvingly. "It shows. That's why I've decided to offer you a promotion. We're creating a new position, Director of Client Relations, and I think you'd be perfect for it." Brett's jaw dropped. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much for this opportunity." As she left the CEO's office, her head spinning with the news, Brett nearly collided with Annabella in the hallway. "Whoa, careful there," Annabella laughed, steadying Brett with a hand on her arm. Then, noticing Brett's dazed expression, she asked, "Is everything okay? What did the CEO want?" Brett broke into a wide grin. "She offered me a promotion. Director of Client Relations. Annabella's face lit up with pride and joy. Oh, Brett, that's wonderful! I'm so proud of you! As they embraced, mindful of their professional setting but unable to contain their excitement, Brett felt a surge of gratitude for how far she'd come. From hiding in the shadows to standing proudly in the light, she had transformed not just her personal life, but her professional one as well. That evening, they celebrated Brett's promotion with a small gathering of friends at their favorite bar. As Brett looked around at the smiling faces of her loved ones, she felt a sense of belonging that she'd once thought impossible. Maria raised her glass in a toast. To Brett, for being an inspiration to us all. And to Brett and Annabella, for showing us what true love looks like. As their friends cheered and clinked glasses, Brett felt Annabella's arms slip around her waist. She leaned into her fiancé's embrace, feeling safe, loved, and truly at home. In the months that followed, Brett threw herself into her new role at work while also diving headfirst into wedding planning. She and Annabella had decided on a spring wedding, giving them just under a year to pull everything together. One Saturday afternoon, as they pored over wedding magazines spread across their living room floor, Brett looked up at Annabella with a thoughtful expression. "What is it, love?" Annabella asked, noticing Brett's pensive mood. Brett bit her lip, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "I've been thinking about my family. I haven't spoken to them in years, not since I transitioned. Part of me wants to invite them to the wedding, but I'm scared." Annabella set aside the magazine she'd been flipping through and moved closer to Brett, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "That's completely understandable. It's a big step. What are you most afraid of?" "Rejection, I guess," Brett admitted softly. "What if they still can't accept me for who I am? Or worse, what if they try to ruin our wedding day?" "Those are valid concerns, but remember, you're not alone in this. Whatever you decide, I'll be right by your side. And if you do reach out to them, we can take it slow. Maybe start with a letter or an email before jumping straight to a wedding invitation." Brett nodded, feeling comforted by Annabella's support. "You're right. I think I want to try. Even if it doesn't go well, at least I'll know I made the effort." Over the next few weeks, Brett worked on drafting a letter to her parents. She poured her heart out onto the pages, explaining her journey, her happiness with Annabella, and her hope for reconciliation. When she finally sealed the envelope and dropped it in the mailbox, she felt a mixture of terror and relief. The wait for a response was agonizing. Brett threw herself into work and wedding planning, trying to keep her mind occupied. Annabella was a constant source of support, holding Brett when she cried and celebrating small victories with her. Finally, nearly a month after sending the letter, a response arrived. Brett's hands shook as she opened the envelope, Annabella by her side, ready to comfort or celebrate. As Brett read the letter, tears began to stream down her face. Annabella waited patiently, her heart racing with concern and hope. They want to meet," Brett said finally, her voice choked with emotion. "They said they've done a lot of soul-searching since I left, and they want to try to understand. They're asking if we can have dinner together." Annabella pulled Brett into a tight embrace. "Oh, my love, that's wonderful. I'm so proud of you for taking this step." The dinner was set for the following week at a neutral location, a quiet restaurant halfway between their apartment and Brett's childhood home. As they drove to the restaurant, Brett's nerves were in overdrive. "What if they don't recognize me?" she fretted, smoothing down her dress for the 100th time. "What if they take one look at me and walk out?" Annabella reached over and squeezed Brett's hand. "Then we'll leave and go get ice cream. But give them a chance. They've taken the first step by agreeing to meet. That has to count for something." As they entered the restaurant, Brett spotted her parents immediately. They looked older than she remembered, her father's hair now completely gray, her mother's face lined with wrinkles that hadn't been there before. For a moment, everyone froze, the years of separation stretching between them like an impassable chasm. Then, with a choked sob, Brett's mother stood and rushed towards her, enveloping her in a tight hug. "My baby," she whispered, her voice thick with tears. "My beautiful, brave girl." Brett broke down, clinging to her mother as years of pent-up emotion poured out. Her father approached more slowly, his eyes wet with unshed tears. "Brett," he said softly, his voice rough with emotion. "Can you ever forgive us?" Brett pulled back from her mother's embrace, looking at her father with a mixture of hope and caution. "I want to," she said honestly. "I've missed you both so much." As they sat down to dinner, the conversation was awkward at first, years of silence and misunderstanding creating a barrier. But slowly, as they shared stories and asked questions, the ice began to thaw. Brett's parents listened attentively as she told them about her life, her job, and most importantly, about Annabella. When Brett introduced Annabella as her fiancée, her mother reached out and clasped Annabella's hand. "Thank you," she said earnestly, "for loving our daughter and making her happy." By the end of the evening, plans had been made for future meetings, and Brett's parents had tentatively accepted an invitation to the wedding. As they said their goodbyes in the parking lot, Brett's father pulled her into a bear hug. "I'm sorry it took us so long to come around," he murmured, "but I want you to know how proud I am of you. You're an amazing woman, Brett." As they drove home, Brett felt as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She turned to Annabella, her eyes shining with happiness and relief. "Thank you for being here with me tonight," she said softly. "I couldn't have done this without you." Annabella smiled, taking Brett's hand and bringing it to her. "Always, my love. We're in this together, remember?" The months leading up to the wedding flew by in a whirlwind of preparations, dress fittings, and decision-making. Brett found herself growing closer to her parents with each passing week, slowly rebuilding the relationship they'd lost. On a crisp spring morning, Brett stood before a full-length mirror, hardly able to believe the reflection staring back at her. Her wedding dress was a vision of ivory lace and silk flowing out into a modest train. Maria, serving as her maid of honor, fussed with the veil, ensuring it sat perfectly atop Brett's elegantly styled hair. The door to the bridal suite creaked open and Brett's mother peeked in, her eyes widening at the sight of her daughter. "Oh, Brett," she breathed, stepping fully into the room. "You're absolutely radiant." Brett turned, her heart swelling with emotion at the sight of her mother. The past year had been a journey of reconnection and healing, and having her parents at the wedding meant more to her than she could express. "Mom," Brett said, her voice catching. "I'm so glad you're here." Her mother crossed the room, taking Brett's hands in hers. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, sweetheart. Your father and I, we've missed so much, but we're here now, and we couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become." Tears threatened to spill over, and Maria quickly dabbed at Brett's eyes with a tissue. "Careful now," she chided gently. "We don't want to ruin your makeup before the ceremony even starts." Brett laughed, the sound a mixture of nervousness and joy. "You're right. I just can't believe this is really happening. After everything." Her mother squeezed her hands. "It's happening because you were brave enough to be true to yourself and lucky enough to find someone who loves you for exactly who you are." A knock at the door interrupted the moment. "5 minutes, ladies," called the wedding coordinator. Brett took a deep breath, smoothing down her dress one last time. "This is it," she murmured. Her mother leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her cheek. "Your father and I will be right there in the front row, cheering you on. We love you, Brett." As her mother left to take her seat, Brett turned back to the mirror. The woman staring back at her was a far cry from the scared, closeted person she'd been just a few years ago. She stood tall, confident in her own skin, ready to begin the next chapter of her life. Maria appeared at her side, holding out a bouquet of pale pink peonies and white roses. "Ready to go get married?" Brett nodded, a radiant smile spreading across her face. More than ready. The walk down the aisle was a blur of smiling faces and happy tears. Brett's father waited at the entrance to the church, his eyes glistening as he took in the sight of his daughter. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," he said, his voice gruff with emotion. Brett linked her arm through his. "Thank you, Dad, for everything." As the music swelled and the doors opened, Brett's eyes locked on Annabella, waiting for her at the altar. The sight of her soon-to-be wife, resplendent in a fitted white suit, took Brett's breath away. With each step down the aisle, Brett felt the weight of her past falling away. The fear, the hiding, the loneliness, all of it melted in the face of the love radiating from Annabella's eyes. When they reached the altar, Brett's father placed her hand in Annabella's, then leaned in to whisper, "Take care of each other." Annabella nodded solemnly, her eyes never leaving Brett's face. "Always," she promised. The ceremony was a beautiful blend of traditional and personal touches. They had written their own vows, each word a testament to the journey they'd taken together and the life they were building. "Brett," Annabella began, her voice steady despite the tears shining in her eyes. "From the moment I met you, I knew there was something special about you. Your strength, your kindness, your unwavering spirit, they drew me in and never let me go. I promise to love and support you through every challenge and every triumph, to be your partner, your confidant, and your biggest cheerleader. You've shown me what it means to love without fear, and I vow to spend the rest of our lives returning that gift." Brett's hands trembled as she began her own vows. "Annabella, my love, my rock. You saw me when I was trying so hard to be invisible. You loved me when I didn't know how to love myself. With you, I've learned that I don't just deserve love, I deserve to be celebrated for who I am. I promise to stand by your side through whatever life throws our way, to laugh with you, cry with you, and grow with you. You are my home, my heart, and my future. I love you more than words can express, and I can't wait to spend the rest of our lives showing you just how much." As they exchanged rings, the simple gold bands a physical representation of their commitment, Brett felt a sense of peace and rightness settle over her. This was where she belonged, with Annabella surrounded by the love and support of their friends and family. "By the power vested in me," the officiant said, beaming at the couple, "I now pronounce you wife and wife. You may kiss the bride." Annabella cupped Brett's face gently, wiping away a stray tear with her thumb before leaning in for a kiss. The church erupted in cheers and applause, but for Brett and Annabella, the world had narrowed down to just the two of them. As they turned to face their guests, hands clasped tightly together, Brett caught sight of her parents in the front row. Her mother was openly weeping, while her father had an arm around her shoulders, his own eyes suspiciously bright. The sight of them, there to support and celebrate her, filled Brett with a joy she never thought possible. The reception was a whirlwind of toasts, dancing, and laughter. Brett and Annabella moved from table to table, greeting guests and accepting congratulations. When they reached Maria's table, their friend pulled them both into a tight hug. "I'm so happy for you two," Maria said, her voice thick with emotion. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." As the night wore on, Brett found herself taking a moment to step back and observe the scene before her. Annabella was on the dance floor, laughing as she twirled Brett's mother in an exuberant dance. Her father was deep in conversation with some of their co-workers, gesturing animatedly as he told a story. Friends from all aspects of their lives mingled and chatted, brought together by the love Brett and Annabella shared. Annabella appeared at her side, slightly out of breath from dancing. "Everything okay, love?" she asked, noticing Brett's contemplative expression. Brett turned to her wife, with a smile that could outshine the sun. "Everything is perfect," she said softly. I never imagined I could be this happy, that I could have all of this. Annabella wrapped an arm around Brett's waist, pulling her close. You deserve every bit of it, my love, and this is just the beginning. As they swayed together to the soft music, Brett rested her head on Annabella's shoulder, breathing in the scent of her perfume. She thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment, the fears she'd overcome, the love she'd found, the family she'd reconnected with. It hadn't been an easy road, but standing here now, in the arms of the woman she loved, surrounded by the people who supported them, Brett knew that every step had been worth it. What are you thinking about? Annabella murmured, her lips close to Brett's ear. Brett lifted her head, meeting Annabella's gaze with a soft smile. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, and how excited I am for our future together. Annabella's eyes sparkled with love and mischief. Speaking of our future, Mrs. Annabella, are you ready to start our honeymoon? Brett laughed, the sound pure and joyous. Lead the way, Mrs. Brett. Our adventure is just beginning. As they made their way to the exit, showered with rose petals and well wishes from their guests, Brett felt a sense of anticipation for the journey ahead. Whatever challenges they might face, whatever joys they might discover, she knew that with Annabella by her side, they could conquer anything. The world stretched out before them, full of possibilities and promise. And as they drove away from the reception, hands intertwined, Brett knew that this was more than just a happy ending. It was a beautiful beginning. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.